All right, everybody. I just clicked the live button. Sorry, we're a couple minutes late. I don't know what I'm doing with these technical live things, but we got all the sound going. So tonight is a super, super, super special night. I have a guest on tonight. You guys know I've brought some people on in the past, and we had a whole lot of fun tonight. I want to make sure we use our time with him wisely. Everybody's time is super valuable these days, but I appreciate you big time. I'll call you a friend of mine. I only met you once, but you impressed me enough. I'll call you my friend. Tonight we have Mr. Cason Short. I'm saying it right, Cason, right? I grew up on the street called Cason Lane, so I should remember that. But Mr. Cason, it's a super, super treat to have him. If you guys have not heard of him, you've surely seen some of his pictures. He is correct me if I say any of this wrong, a third generation duck guide.
That's right.
And the current operator of the Bill Byers Hunter Club in Arkansas.
Yep.
So you guys that have been around the channel for a little while know I uploaded a duck hunting video. I think it was back in December when I was over there with you guys.
I think so. It sounds right. Yeah.
Had an absolute blast. Absolute blast. So just a little bit of background if you guys missed that video. I pull up and there were literally hundreds of birds on my way in. I could not believe my eyes. On the ground, in the sky. And I'm definitely a newbie. So I'm going to try to keep my mouth shut for the first time so we can learn from Mr. Cason. But y'all put your questions in the chat. 100% we have an expert in both waterfowling, everything and anything there is. And also in photography. So I want to make sure we use our time wisely with him tonight. I appreciate you big time jumping in here. So just off the bat, give us a little bit of your background. I already spilled the beans, said you're a third generation hunting guide. What all does that entail? That's a super huge question, but you're year round, right? It's a year round thing.
It is. Yeah. It's year round. Now we're in agriculture as well. So right now our biggest focus is we're watering soybeans and rice like it's going out of style because we got a half inch of rain this week, which is our first rain in 32 days. So we're pretty dry in my part of the world right now. But that's kind of our big thing this summer is we keep up with all the agricultural stuff we got going on, and we still do a lot of work towards duck hunting almost daily. So we're getting ready to put some millet in the ground in the next week or so. We got a good chance of rain coming next week, so we're going to try to take advantage of that. But there's always something to be done. It's nonstop. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I'm going to plug this before I forget. In the description of this video, go ahead and you can leave now and come back. I put his new YouTube channel. You just started a YouTube channel. I saw it pop up. Everybody go subscribe. I promise you're not going to regret subscribing. There's a bunch of yahoos out there. Mr. Cason here, he's posting good videos already, and you're going to want to go subscribe to that YouTube. Also, I've got his Instagram down there. If you guys have Instagram, you do that thing, go down there and follow him if you're not already. Huge, super wealth of knowledge with this man and his staff and his whole crew. So I'm going to hit you with some random questions.
Let's go.
I've got a stack of them in my brain. I want to make sure we get to. Appreciate everybody jumping in here as we're going. Give us specifically where you're at. This is for the newbies and for the diehards out there. Give us all the species that you've taken, birds specifically, there at the Hunter Club. When I was there, I was blown away being an absolute newbie. All the different type of birds we got. That might have been an anomaly, but I was having a hoot just learning about the birds themselves when I was there.
Yeah, so we are 1 hour west of Memphis. We're exactly an hour from the bridge there in Memphis, just north of Interstate 40 by a few miles. And that, I guess, our proximity to everything duck hunting and the fact that we've got trees and fields, ton of variety species-wise. And I think maybe the best we've ever done in a single hunt is 7 different species.
Wow.
Now, that's 3 species of geese and 4 species of ducks. And really probably the rarest thing is the 3 species of geese in a hunt. You know, it's not uncommon to kill that many different ducks at a time. But Man, to go through the list.
Let me take a stab at the 3 geese: Canadian, snow geese, and speckled bellies.
You got it.
I got to tell you, I had never heard of a speckled belly goose until I came down there with you guys. That's how much of a newbie I am. I'm a diehard whitetail hunter, but I'm like speckled belly. And then just hearing Keith was with us the second morning, I think, Keith. And then just hearing them talk back and forth to those geese just blew my mind.
Yeah. That's one of the really neat things about that particular species is that there's you develop a dialogue with them, unlike, a mallard or anything else that just listens and then responds. They actually talk back to you, which is pretty cool. Now, you got to tell your audience, since you took some home, how are they to eat?
I didn't get one. I didn't bring any of the geese home.
Oh, no.
I did bring home 7 or 8 ducks, and we literally ate them the night I got home from the trip.
I remember in the video, your girl she loved them, didn't she?
Yeah, absolutely. We literally ate all of the duck the night I got home.
Did we fix any of the speckled belly while you were out there?
I don't think so.
Oh man, somebody robbed you.
We ate good. Oh my goodness, your buddy from Memphis. I'm forgetting his name.
Ryan Trim. Yeah,
Ryan. Yeah, I probably never ate so good in my life.
He's like next level. He's a chef in Memphis, obviously, but man, he comes and cooks for us some, and it is fantastic. He's very talented.
I interrupted you when you're starting to talk about the species. Let me keep my mouth shut. We talked about the 3 type of geese.
Yep. So 3 geese. We have killed mallard, gadwall, widgeon, blue-winged teal, green-winged teal, black-belly whistling duck, fulvous whistling duck.
I'd never even heard of those.
Pintail, ruddy duck, wood duck, and I think that's it. But
we got a funny looking one when I was there that had like a spoonbill.
Oh yeah, spoonbill. I left that out. We kill a good number of spoonbill too. Yep.
I had never seen one of those birds. I've taken. Have you ever heard of spoonbill fish?
Yeah. Oh yeah. For sure.
Look, we used to snag for those all the time, but when we got that duck, I was like, "What in the devil is that?"
Yeah.
But I had a blast down there. Not only learning the whole experience, but getting to see all the different type of ducks that we got.
That was the first duck hunt, wasn't it?
Very first.
Yeah.
And I'm hooked. I've hooked up with some guys here in Tennessee that are going to take me out duck hunting, but everybody I talk to is like, "Oh, you want to get the good duck hunting? You got to go to Arkansas." I'm like, well, I had a taste of that.
Well,
it's pretty ridiculous.
See too, it's got a rich history. But man, that first morning, and I'm sorry, I'll get distracted easily. But that first morning in the woods, when they were coming in just right before light, I'm hiding the boat back there in the trees, trying to get back to you guys, and they're just falling in your face. Like that's I think as Arkansas duck hunting gets. And I was so thankful that you guys got that show just right out of the gate. I mean, it was even Chris Jennings was having a good time, and he's duck hunted a ton. But
yeah, if nobody knows who Chris Jennings is, what's his title? He's a editor, something of Ducks Unlimited. I forget what it is now.
Yeah, maybe the chief editor of the magazine.
Chief editor, I think you're right. Yeah, but I had a blast down there the entire time. So something else I wanted to touch on that really piques my interest, and a lot of people would probably like to hear about. So, tell us what you've been involved with in the past. And me being a novice, I really am not sure how to form the question correctly, but when I was up there with you guys and we were talking about tracking and tagging ducks, so that's something that you've been a part of quite extensively, right? And I loved picking your brain there, just talking about tracking ducks. So that's super interesting to me. What can I don't know how to form the question right, but what can you tell us? What have you tagged in the past, and are there interesting patterns, or how far do they travel? Or
yeah, so let's see, man. I guess I'm not sure how far back you want to go with my interest in speckled bellies, but it dates back to when I was 9-10 years old. Started kind of aiding in some research back in the early 90s. Well, I was older than 9 at that point, but anyway. So I've always been interested in them. Ran into a biologist that was studying Southwest Louisiana, and his question was, why are they losing the birds that they've been losing? Southwest Louisiana used to be ground zero for speckled-belly hunting. And now we will winter in October, November. We'll have more white fronted geese, speckled-bellies on our farm at one time than the entire state of Louisiana will have all year.
No way.
That's how much that population has shifted. And a lot of that is due to habitat degradation, more disturbance. And all of these things are what they found out in this study. So I noticed the guys doing the study. I reach out to them, say, hey, look at some of these numbers that we're seeing, 100 to 150,000 white fronts here at one time. Would you be interested in coming up here and doing some banding and seeing kind of where these birds go when this flock breaks up and spreads out? So
cool.
He told us yes, he'd love to do it. Told us we had to raise $10,000 to do it. So we start getting some people that were like-minded individuals that were interested in finding some stuff out. We raised a bunch of money, and we trapped the first birds ever caught. The first white fronts ever caught in Arkansas were caught on our farm.
So how far back is this? Is this like 90s?
No, this would have been maybe 4 years ago.
Okay.
Like 18, 19, that area was the
I thought we were still talking about when you were 8 or 9.
way far ahead. Because so in the 90s, they had UHF transmitters. So what you had was, if a bird was equipped with a transmitter, you had a biologist running around in a van with an antenna, and he would go hear a ping, and he'd have to move closer, and that's how they chased him down. Now it's a miniature cell phone. They log into a cell phone tower every day, and every time they get to a tower, they dump all their info. And
that's wild.
Man, it's crazy, because it's got a Traxxas like sensor in that collar, and it can tell if the bird's sleeping or if it's standing up feeding. I mean, and
way.
Yeah.
I didn't understand that part when you were explaining it. That's incredible.
And a ground speed indicator, all kinds of stuff. Matter of fact, we've had a number that have gotten recovered by hunters, and that happens. That's not a problem. But you can, a lot of times, the guy, when he kills one, he'll put it on the dash of his truck for a few days before he calls it in. You find out where the guy lives, where he eats lunch, where he goes to work. I mean, because all it does is sit there on his dash and log where he's going. But it's crazy, that shift in technology in just a 30-year span. We went from a UHF antenna to more data than we can really consume. But so, sorry, to get back to your question on the geese, we've noticed a lot of interesting things. We've noticed kind of how they react to gun pressure. There's an interesting story. A guy, it was in Louisiana, they abandoned some there, had a flock come in, and I think they killed, several geese out of the flock. They did not shoot the one bird that was banded. They saw it, they didn't shoot it. That bird flew nonstop, like 60-something miles, and landed field with nothing around, and stayed there for like a day, just as a reaction to being shot at. Now, that may not be the normal thing that they do, but it's a unique observation nonetheless.
That's wild.
Yeah. We had one. It was the very first bird that we banded, came back the next year, passed over our farm, didn't stop, went somewhere else, and then actually ended up in, is it Sand Lake? Is that a refuge in West Tennessee? Am I right about that?
I couldn't tell you.
Somewhere in West Tennessee, not too far from Reelfoot, maybe the Jackson area, kind of up in that area, there's a refuge, and she ended up dying there and washing up. But it was neat to see, a bird that was kind of historically there for 2 years in Arkansas ventured over that far into West Tennessee. So they move a lot more than we think. We've seen some big circles, seen birds fly through Arkansas, Mississippi, and Louisiana in the period of a day, just a nonstop big circular flight. So they'll pick up and move a lot of way. They'll also hunker down really well too. They get very, very good at surviving, and they get really set. They're kind of like old whitetail, man. They develop a pattern. They get really good at it, and they don't deviate from it. Now, usually what gets them in trouble as far as being killed is rain. Rain will come through, puts new habitat in the landscape. They venture out, start eating somewhere they've never fed before, and boom, they get shot.
So talking about the ones that you've tagged and been a part of those studies, what's like the average range, and then what's like the extreme range that you guys have witnessed?
So, and this is on whitetails. We did mallards also, so we can kind of get into some mallard stuff here in a minute. But on the white fronts, typically nest mids, low Arctic, or what they call high Arctic, but north central Canada. If you're looking all the way up, as far as you can get there. Now, the furthest.
What time of year is that?
I'm sorry.
What time of year is that?
Now, right through the middle of summer, they'll follow the ice line up like in February, March, and we'll start staging in Kansas and areas up through there. And as soon as it thaws, the birds that are in good body shape, the birds that are healthy, they want to be the very first bird back to the nesting ground because real estate is key. So they get the best nest, they're going to have the best clutch. And the healthiest birds are the ones that are able to do that. Now, longest, we've got one bird that has been nesting in Prudhoe Bay. If you ever watch Ice Road Truckers.
Yeah.
So the north slope of Alaska, we've got birds up there. And it's probably why some of the oil fields get kind of shut down, or you hear some talk about where they can and can't drill. And there's a lot of birds that nest up there, and they depend on that area to reproduce. So we think of the show and only think about the oil fields. We don't ever think about what's going on in the summertime and the birds that are using that.
That's wild. Are there any birds that stay year-round on your farm?
No, not wild. There's resident Canada geese that are around. Now, I say not wild. That's not true. We are starting to see some black-bellied whistling ducks that stay in the area. There's a biologist in Memphis that's doing pretty good research on them as well. So that's a species that traditionally is a coastal bird. Florida kills a bunch. Texas kills a bunch. Louisiana has them. But now we're seeing them further north, into Mississippi, into Arkansas, and parts of Tennessee now. Stuff that we've done is the same deal. On both these, we're trying to only ban the females because in research, really, that's the only thing that matters. We want to know how long is she going to live and how often is she going to nest. Nobody really cares that much about the boys. So we've seen some interesting stuff with the hen mallards. Survival rate is extremely low. It's shocking, really, to me, just how tough it is for a female mallard duck to survive. It's tough. Even, duck season ends and you think, okay, well, these ducks have survived. They're going to go back. They're going to nest, and we'll see them again next year. But that's not the case. They still have a long road ahead of them trying to survive all the avian and ground nest predators that they've got on the nesting ground. So, and some other interesting things, and this gets kind of off in the science side of duck hunting, but we started to see ducks kind of go nocturnal. And that's something you hear a lot now in duck hunting. People talk about it a good bit, but we had a mallard hen that came back to us the year after she was banded. She shows up, and they are a few days before season opens. She's staying in woods during the daylight and then feeding in a bean field in the middle of the night and going back to the woods. And that's before she's ever been shot at in Arkansas. Now, she's been shot at since September on her way south. But, there's no pressure going on in Arkansas. And she's already as nocturnal as, the oldest buck that you're going to chase. So we're starting to see some evidence of that too.
So, like when we talk about whitetail, if you shoot a 5-6-year-old deer, that's a big deer.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't care where you are. Here, that's probably a monster because we don't have huge deer in Tennessee. But what's kind of that lifespan of a duck? It's longer if I'm thinking right? Do they live longer than that, or just depends? Or
it can be. I think average is kind of similar to a whitetail, about 4 to 6.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is it differ on species or geese, or do geese live longer?
So geese do live longer. We've had some white fronts, not uncommon to see a 10 to 15-year-old. 15's getting up there, but 10-year-old white front is not totally unheard of. In fact, I want to say a friend of mine shot one this year that might have been 18. It was into its teens. We killed one winter there. We killed 2. They were both older white fronts, and if you took their banding location to be their nesting ground and you figured up, okay, they made that trip once, they probably nested there again. Together, those 2 birds in their lifetime had logged like 80,000 miles in the Mississippi.
Wow.
So, if, their creature haven't go back to the same place. So they hear and see a lot. And you don't, I know on your one hunt, bird comes in, shoot bird. Hey, man, that's awesome. That was fun. You never think about how many times has that bird heard a duck call or a goose call? How many times has it been shot at or seen somebody in a field with decoys? They get smart. They get good at surviving.
I believe it. So if you guys are just jumping in, we are here with Mr. Cason Short. Appreciate his time. He is an expert in everything having to do with waterfowl. And that expert is probably downplaying his background and knowledge, all seriousness. But make sure you're subscribed to his YouTube channel. Follow him on Instagram. Links are down below. Let's jump into the chat. Can you see the chat there?
I cannot. If I hit the chat button, will that bring it up?
I don't know. Yeah, probably. I can't see what you're seeing, but yeah, probably. Okay. Let me know if you see something interesting, and I'll fan through here quick too. I want to make sure we get to a couple questions in here. Appreciate everybody jumping in.
I'm trying to sort through it. So what? All right, here we go. Favorite waterfall shotgun.
Ooh, that's a good one. If you guys are interested in that kind of stuff, go check out Cason's Instagram. There's a bunch of goodies on there. I'll let you answer it.
That's tough. I'm a big fan of the old Browning Auto 5s. I mean, I don't know. It's kind of like maybe like you and that bolt gun that you brought. I don't know that there really is a bad shotgun. You know, I mean, I've shot everything from 870s to newer Browning and Benellis, and I love all of them. It's really tough to beat a great, reliable 870. They just don't fail. Grew up I shot 1100 a lot as a kid. Love those as well. So I'm generally more, if I'm going to shoot automatic, I'm a little bit more of a fan of an inertia gun than I am a gas gun. Okay. So I guess maybe that's kind of the only side I'll take.
When we were down there, it seemed like everybody who was an expert had a Browning in their hands.
You see a lot of that. See a lot of Benellis in our part of the world too. Don't quite see as many Remingtons now. I think maybe since 1100 kind of went to the wayside. I know there's I'm trying to think. What's their? I can't think of their waterfowl gun.
So Kyle and Jason, that's who was with us on the second day, I think. Am I remembering their names right?
Yep, that's right.
I think they both had Brownings with us.
They did, yeah. And I want to say Jason has a 20 gauge Benelli he likes a lot in the woods, but he's a big Browning fan as well. So cover a lot with just those two B brands.
Sure.
So I see another one here. Okay. Choke suggestions for Steel Shot. So if you go back to when Steel Shot really first came on the scene, you had some issues with thinner barrels and fixed chokes, and you had some lawyers that advertised, hey, you can't run full choke, you can't run Steel Shot. The truth of it is, Steel Shot patterns, it likes the same type choke that lead shot does. Now, with that caveat, I have shot a lot of steel through a full choke without any huge issues. You can swell a choke tube to where it gets tough to unscrew it. When that happens, throw the choke tube away and go buy another one. Now that's 3,000-4,000 rounds down the road. But I'm a full choke fan. We shoot a lot of bismuth shot, Bosch shot shells now, and I love a full choke. Steel, I'm kind of the same way. I like a full choke. It's almost like shooting trap. You know, with a full choke, as long as I do my part, it's all going to get there and it's going to be on target. So I've got friends, I know a lot of people that want a more open choke than that, but that's just not my style.
Got it. You heard it from the man himself. So when I did that video, and I just kind of showed my gear, I had a full choke on my CZ that I took down there, and I had hundreds and hundreds of comments saying, you're going to blow that thing up, with steel sight. And I didn't know any better. I'm like, I asked one friend of mine who's been duck hunting, and he said, yes, that's exactly what you should be taking.
Yeah. Like I said, I like full choke. And I think I swelled one extended choke tube in my life, and I think it had 3,000 to 4,000 rounds down it before it got to where you could notice it when you would unscrew it. It got a little tight in one spot. And I was like, you know what? I'll go buy another one. That's, cost of doing business. Now, I wouldn't go grab an old Belgian Browning and run steel through it just for the fun of it. There's people that do, and they claim it's fine, and that's all well and good. But on something like that I can't go buy a Belgian barrel every day of the week to replace. I'm not going to run a full choke. Really not going to run steel through it unless I have to. So,
Gotcha. Awesome. Awesome. The gun that I took down there was the CZ, I think it's called a 610 or something. I just got it. I'd only run like 100 shells through it. And for whatever reason, it was being fidgety. And that's when I brought out that stinking bolt action, which is like $100 at a shop here in town, just because I thought it was odd. But come to find out, they're plentiful and not really worth any money. But that thing worked good. I shot a few ducks the second day with that thing.
yeah, shot a bunch of skeet with that afternoon too.
That was a blast. So let's talk about that for a quick second. What's the game? What'd you call it?
We were playing Knockout, right?
Knockout. Yes.
Yeah.
I had an absolute blast doing that. I told my dad, and since then I haven't got enough people together where we could actually play it, but we're absolutely going to do that. That was a whole lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun. I mean, you can set it up and do the whole Sporting Clays course, but you get some guys around that all think they're pretty good shots, and you start playing Knockout. You have a good time. And there were some shooters in that group for sure.
I'm pretty sure every single person in that whole line.
Yeah, that was a tough line to play in.
Aubrey, I see you in here. Appreciate the super chat. Aubrey's in here every night. What other questions do you guys have in here? They're flying by my screen.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep up.
Dale Pogue says, I have a Benelli Super Black Eagle Ducks Unlimited giveaway gun.
Yeah, I saw that. DU has some nice stuff. Matter of fact, I've got an 1187 DU gun. Got it actually through Kyle. His dad works for DU, so there's a lot of crossover connection there.
Here's one. Nick. Appreciate Nick. Nick's in the chat every single night. Nick says, so I can shoot steel in my old Beretta 300 semi-auto with a fixed choke.
I would say so. Now, I don't know a lot about Berettas. I doubt that gun is old enough to be, kind of the lead shot only era, like the 50s and 60s model Brownings that I was mentioning. There's a question down there about a Stevens. Just a second, I'll get to. So I would think that it's okay. Probably could do you could check out the forums at Shotgun World. Someone there could probably tell you a little bit better than me. But just because it's a fixed choke doesn't mean you can't shoot steel through it. Particularly, like I said, if it's not a full, I would probably not worry much at all about it. But again, your mileage may vary. I don't want to tell you, yeah, go shoot it, full's fine, and you come back and be like, man, my barrel bulged out and I can feel it.
This guy,
right?
is this the one you were talking about from Leonard?
Yes. So I'm trying to think about the Stevens. I had some Stevens 22s. I don't know they've ever really been around one of their shotguns, but it really doesn't take much to be a decent duck gun, to be honest with you. I know a lot of folks kind of go for the synthetic and the painted and all this, hey, it doesn't rust, wood won't swell, all those things. But you go, if you find us on Instagram and look back very far, you'll see a lot of pictures of 65-year-old guns out there in the woods still doing work. So whether it's blued in wood or painted and synthetic, man, if you like it and you shoot it, go for it. And sometimes I'll get guns out that were my dad's or granddad's and take them duck hunting just to go kill a duck with that gun. So the best duck gun you can take is the one that you like to shoot.
That's cool. That's kind of my thing that I do when we talk about bolt actions. I like to take cheap rifles and then go get half-inch groups at 100 yards and be like, I can't even do that with my $2,000 gun. That just because I think it's funny.
No, that's awesome.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think a lot of people want to spend a bunch of money and shoot those ducks that are half a mile up in the sky, which you probably shouldn't be taking those shots anyways, right?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, it's again, our friends at Boss have a kind of a nice campaign that's out now called Know Your Shot, and it's NO. Say no sometimes. Know what your legitimate limit is, and do that. And I'm sure it's true in whitetail hunting too, but I feel like deer hunters a little better at knowing, hey, I can't make that shot. I'm not going to wound that deer. I'm not going to take it. Duck hunters, probably not so much like that. And if it's above them, they're going to shoot at it, and they don't think about the crippling effect. I took some pictures this year, actually right there by the woods where you hunted, and there was a banded white front out there. So I'm taking its picture. That's cool. And then there's a crippled goose off to the side, and it can barely stand. In fact, it's laying down in the pictures. Its head's kind of drooped over to the side. And it just kind of caught my eye. And I was like, this is, to me, a little more interesting than that banded bird, because this is the effect that most people don't see. They don't see past their hunt that morning. And it happens. We all do it. It's bird hunting. You're going to see that. But yeah, a lot of people want to try to kill birds at 70 and 80 yards, and it's just not really feasible.
That's like maybe like equating it to shooting a whitetail at 1,000 yards. But
right.
I've got plenty of rifles that'll shoot 1,000 yards, and I can hit a piece of steel this big, but I'm probably not going to take that shot on a deer.
That's right. Yeah, I mean I've done that coyote hunting. In fact, I shoot on a range. We shoot
coyotes. We'll take a shot at them.
Yeah. So when I left my range one day, and I've been shooting 600 or 1,000, I can't remember, and see this coyote, I stop, range it, like, all right, no big deal. Adjust the scope, get ready to go. It's 600-700 yards, and I whiffed. And I was like, golly, man, not 20 minutes ago, I've been shooting this gun at that distance, but it's different. I mean, just because I can make a shot at 1,000 doesn't mean I should shoot a deer at 1,000 yards.
Yeah.
Here's a good one. Do I prefer 3-inch or 2 3/4? For a while, I shot, when I was shooting steel. I haven't shot steel in a couple of years. When I was shooting steel, I shot 3.5-inch. Now, there's a ton of people that'll tell you, oh man, you don't need 3.5s. And they're probably right. But you have to look at what was considered a magnum payload in the days of lead. So in lead shot, 3-inch 12 gauge, your magnum payload was 1 ounce and 5/8 all the way up to maybe 1 ounce and 7/8. But 1 ounce and 5/8 were kind of the baby magnums. 1 ounce and 3/4 was pretty common. I don't know of any 3.5-inch 12 gauge steel shot that's 1 ounce and 3/4. I do think you can find some 1 ounce and 5/8, but more common it's 1.5 ounces. So even though I was shooting 3.5s, there's a world of people that say you don't need them. We still were kind of we were baby magnums compared to what everyone shot, or what a lot of people shot when lead was legal. So now, fast forward to today, I shoot more bismuth. I still shoot 3-inch, but my dad shot more cases of 2 3/4-inch steel than I can remember, and I think he always killed ducks better than I did. So I'm kind of a 3-inch person. I believe, it's kind of like shooting deer. I don't need a 300 Ultra Mag. I actually don't own one, but
I got
so dead is dead, right? But if I can be more efficient, if I get a few more pellets out there and I cripple less, then that's all the better, right?
Yep, there you go. I'm scanning the comments here again.
Oh, there's a bolt action 20 gauge Mossberg. That's cool.
And I'm going to say it again, if you guys are just jumping in here, in the description of this video, I've got Cason's YouTube and Instagram. Go follow him over there. He has phenomenal pictures. I don't know how you do it, but your pictures look more real than real life. You have, I'm sure, the equipment you pulled out just dropped my jaw. But then whatever you do editing, I have no idea. But there's one picture you took of me when we were just shooting clays out there. I'm like, that looks better than real life. I don't know how he took that picture. But if you guys are into photography, especially wildlife photography, you're going to want to especially follow him on Instagram. He posts some incredible stuff all the time.
Those were fun that day, especially with that bolt action. It was really cool to catch, kind of the freeze motion there and catch you running that bolt in that hole, out to the side and the smoke coming out of it. That was kind of my challenge as I saw you doing it. I was like, all right, that's what I want to catch, that spot right there, and some of them turned out.
Everybody that picture.
Yeah. Did you get any copies of those, digital copies of them?
I don't think so.
Okay. When we get off here, I'll send you a link to them. I still got them. I'm surprised Aaron didn't send them to you. So shame on Aaron, but I'll get them to you.
I'll talk to him. He's a good guy.
He really, yeah. If I didn't like Aaron, I wouldn't have called him out right there.
I saw him in. I was hanging out with him in Houston a couple weeks ago at the NRA show, and
Yeah.
I was ragging him so hard because the first day we were down there hunting, I was on the end to your left,
Mm-hmm.
and Aaron was right beside me. And right at the beginning, he just blasted a tree right in front of him. We're in there in the woods. I had a hoot. Not only in the woods there, you call it flooded timber,
Yep.
but where were we? I guess we were in a flooded rice field the second day, down in a pit.
I know you're in a pit, and I think a rice field, but I'm not positive. My memory's a little fuzzy, and a lot of those hunts run together after a while too.
Sure. But in both of those, I don't know which one I had more fun. I would probably say if I had to pick the flooded timber, but both of them an absolute blast. Well, let's talk about that real quick. We've been on here for 40 minutes. I don't want to hold you too long. What do you do at the hunt club, and can people book with you? How does that all work if people want to look you up on your website?
Yeah, they can. So all of our contact information is there on the website. You can find the website either through our Instagram page or just buyersfarm.com. We book about a year in advance. So last year, everybody that hunted last year held on to their dates for this year. So we had 0 openings. I think the year before that, we had 1 opening. So they filled pretty quickly. We do have a waiting list. So like right now, if you email me tomorrow and you want to book a hunt, we'll put you on a list. And then for the next year, if we have something come available, we'll contact people down that list and try to book hunts like that. Now, one of the things that we don't do, we don't mix groups. We try really, really hard not to. So we like to book groups of around 8. So if you come hunt with us, your party will have the place totally to themselves. Like when you guys are out, there wasn't a bunch of other yahoos running around, and we're lucky to be able to do that. And we want to hang on to that as long as we can. It's just a kind of a nice privacy thing when you're in camp to be there with the people that and you want to hang out with. So
sure. And you guys have an awesome place. Like I would have been happy camping outside in a tent. That lodge you guys have is awesome.
Well, thank you.
It's not only a lodge; it's in a way, it's almost like a museum. Pictures and animals and that wall of calls. I had an absolute blast.
Yeah, so we go back. My grandfather started it in 1953, and there's a portion inside our lodge now that is the very original clubhouse, as we call it. And back then, we didn't lodge anybody; they just met there and had coffee, and then went out in the woods to hunt. So we talk about that. I mean, a couple times a year. Would we take what we have, or would we level it and start from the ground up and build this totally new, modern, lodge? And I think, man, I like what we have. I like the history of that building. It's been added on to a bunch. I like the nostalgia of how many people have come through those doors over the years. And it's still nice, don't get me wrong. But, if I was starting the ground up, I would lay it out a little differently. The mudroom would be different, kitchen, all those things, but I wouldn't want to trade the history that we have inside there. So.
Sure. Absolutely. I'm going to jump to the comments again real quick.
Yeah, I see the SP10 there that Bull Daniels is talking about. That's one that I don't have, and I really kind of want to pick up an SP10. I don't know why. I just think they're cool.
Who makes that one? I'm not familiar with that.
So originally it was Ithaca, and then Remington bought the patent on it and started making it. It looks a lot like an 1100. I think that's kind of unintentional since Ithaca started with it, but it's you have probably seen one and just passed by it thinking it was a standard 1100, but it's a 10 gauge Remington or Ithaca.
I've never shot a 10 gauge.
Oh, well.
I've been collecting shells until I can find one.
Well, remind me of that. If you come hunt with us again, I've got a BPS that you're welcome to go take out. So that's good information. If the 870 barrels have a star at the end that will shoot steel, I don't know if he's talking about the star or kind of the asterisk, but a lot of times that's the denotes what choke that barrel is. I'm not positive what he's talking about there.
That's a random question, but I've seen some. Uh, he might not be specifically talking about shotguns, but I have seen come on the market from Umarex. They just came out with a 20 gauge air shotgun. That
Really?
would be interesting. I don't. I would think you'd be at a super disadvantage when you could just go pick up a 12 gauge. But excavation asks about your watch. Are you an Apple guy?
Oh no, I don't. My watch doesn't do anything fancy. It just tells time. I think this one's a Steinhardt.
I don't even have a watch.
uh, yeah, I don't really want that much tracking information on my wrist all the time. Bad enough it's in my pocket, but I don't know. I'm kind of old school with watches. I really don't like watches that even have batteries in them.
I don't either. I haven't worn one in a long time. But going back to the booking, that tells you the caliber of duck hunters and experience and location that you have down there. People are booked out a year in advance, and you can't even get in with this guy. That's how good they are. But if you have an opening, feel free to sneak me, call me on the cell phone, and
Yeah,
I'll drive over there.
we'll have to get you back out. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. It's and that was a good group, a mixed bag, if you will, of people, but a good group. I think everyone had a lot of fun with each other. Um, Here's a good one. Favorite shot size for bismuth. Probably fours, threes or fours. Um, we run a bunch of it. Our guides run bismuth. It's all that we shoot. Um, some guys lean more towards fives, some threes, and some are right in the middle at fours. So I guess it depends a little bit on what you're doing. I kind of like threes because at any given moment, barring us being in the woods, there's a pretty good chance that we're going to shoot at some geese. I feel like threes kind of give me best of both worlds. I wouldn't be scared to just shoot fours though, or fives. I mean, I think any of that's pretty effective. So, depending on what you're doing exactly, I would stick in that 3 to 5 range.
And you guys shoot boss shells. Do I remember that right?
That's right. Yep.
Here's another one. This is kind of similar to that same question. What steel shot do you recommend for mallards?
Uh, so I always split the difference. I could never really talk myself into BBs, and I didn't really want to step all the way down to twos. So if I could find ones, that's what I would buy. How picky is that?
Well,
But I think twos.
it probably depends too, knowing your area and if you are going to have some geese or.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot of it's just the retained energy, downrange, and steel gives that up so quick in comparison to lead or boss, which they shoot very similar. So
Let's talk about the seasons real quick. So,
yep.
what do you have? How does it work? So, I know it's not just floodgates wide open, shoot whatever birds you want to right now. But how does that work? Do different species come in at different parts of the fall and winter, or how all does that work where you're at?
Yes. So we're July right now. We'll start seeing migrating ducks the first week of August. We will drain rice and start cutting rice late August, early September. As soon as we get the first combine out of the field, we'll start putting water on it, and we will have ducks shortly thereafter. So we have an early teal season that runs usually like the 14th of September through the end of the month. It's you get, I think, 3 weekends. It's 14 days. Depends on how it lays in the calendar. Excuse me. So we have early teal season. That will close at the end of September, and then we're kind of closed all of October. Now, there's an early speckability season that starts in and around Halloween every year. I think this year it opens on the 29th of October and runs through November 12th. And then duck season will open up the Saturday before Thanksgiving. This year, this is the last year they're going to do that. Next year, they're moving it back. So next year, duck season will start the Saturday after Thanksgiving. And then basically this year we'll run for a week. It'll close the Sunday after Thanksgiving. It'll stay closed for about 10 days, open up the second weekend in December, I believe. And then aside from Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, it will basically run to the end of January. And that's our season. unless you get into the conservation snow goose season and stuff like that, which I don't fool with. That's kind of where it's at. But the migration happens a lot earlier than most people think about it. We'll start seeing ducks, hand over fist in late October and early November.
Gotcha. And I saw this question fly by. So, what's your favorite species to eat? So, what's your favorite duck and what's your favorite goose?
Goose is white front. Duck is probably green wing teal. Mallards are good. Most anything that's grain fed in rice field tastes extremely similar. So teal will be the top of my list. They're just small, they're tender. This will shock a lot of listeners that duck hunt, but spoonbill are a very close second. They have a small breast. They're very tender. They're good to eat. You run into there's some parasite issues you see a little more frequently in spoonbill. But in our part of the world, grain-fed diet, and it's kind of like cattle. That's all what you feed them. But overall, hands down, white fronts are better than any of them.
I've never
We've
had.
got to. If you get back, we got to fix that because it is. The joke is they call them rib out of the sky. They are phenomenal.
Really?
Yep.
All I did, I'm not a cook whatsoever, but all I did when I cooked those ducks that I brought back was just butter in a pan. That's literally all I did, and I loved it.
It's simple. That's with white fronts, that's what we'll do with them. Now you can get very extravagant, and we've got some recipes that are, but we'll put a little Montreal steak seasoning on them, a little olive oil, Montreal steak seasoning, put them on we use Blackstone all the time. You saw that when you were there. Get it just as white hot as you can get it and sear it just a little bit per side, and that's it. And they're phenomenal like that.
I'm scanning the comments here again quick.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep up, man. You got a lot of comments.
There's people talking about, I thought I saw a Hootie Hoo 10 gauge video. No, not yet.
Do I own a punt gun? I do not, although those are amazing to look at.
They've got some in Memphis at the Bass Pro Shop.
Yes.
Interesting stuff. 4 gauges and stuff like that. I've got to tell on myself. I don't think I told you when I was down there. I was probably too embarrassed meeting you the first time. So prior to coming to hang out with you guys, I think I only knew about it for a couple weeks or something. Somebody else was supposed to go. I think Omar Crispy was supposed to be down there. Then he couldn't make it, so they called me and said, "You want to come down and duck hunt?" I said, "Absolutely." I ran around. This was when it was hard for you to just find shells on the shelf. I ran around just buying a bunch of 12 gauge whenever I found it because I didn't have a whole lot, and I was buying up a bunch of lead. I did not know that's how much of a newbie that I was. That I was buying up a bunch thinking I knew what I was doing. And then a buddy of mine in Montana is like, that's illegal to shoot ducks with. I said, I didn't know that. I didn't have a clue, but now I know.
Yeah, well, so I just saw that comment down there. Is lead legal? It is not. It's illegal. So I want to say the lead ban started in, it wasn't just a one rule and affected everybody the same. It kind of was slowed in. 87, 88, I want to say, maybe 86. But interestingly enough, in Arkansas, you had what they considered were hot counties. So certain counties, they banned lead before others. We had one particular season, our property spans 2 counties, where you could leave our lodge, and depending on where you're going, you could or could not shoot lead that year. So government at work, sometimes the rules aren't really easy to understand and follow. But I saw, trying to get back to it, there's so many 10 gauge. Everybody wants to see you shoot a 10 gauge. I'm all for this. I think we should make
Two at the same time.
PG, how do you set up your decoys? It depends a little on, you want the wind at your back. I don't put a ton of thought into it as far as, you see these articles about decoys set up and it matters and it works. And I do put some thought into it. I don't know if at this point it's just kind of natural, like this is how it should be and that's how I'm going to do it. But I like to leave a little landing spot in the front, either be it, through kind of shaping them like a V or a U, or if you do it kind of like a J. But that's kind of depending on how we're facing and how you're wanting them to land. That's how we'll set it up. But really, wind determines most of that. Determines most of that.
So that's new to me. You want the wind in your back? Is that what you said?
Yes. So you want them to land coming straight to you. You want them just like an airplane flying into the wind, and they will set up, into the wind. You want them to turn and face and come straight to you. So here's one. What is a punt gun? So you should Google it and check it out. They were used market hunting back in the market hunting days when you could go kill all the ducks you wanted and sell them. It is now illegal to sell birds. You can't even sell feathers off ducks anymore. Yeah, that's Randall Richardson just said that. They're illegal now, aren't they? Yes, they are illegal. But what they would do, these were not meant to be shouldered. They were mounted in a gun, and you would paddle the boat out in the middle of the ducks in the middle of the night and shoot this large gun. Some of them shot, I think, I want to say, 1.5 pounds, 2 pounds of shot, and just, lay them out all over the water. And I've seen pictures of punt guns that had, like 4 or 5 barrels, like multiple punt guns. Pretty cool stuff. I'm glad we got away from market hunting. We had to for conservation, but man, necessity is a mother. The things they came up with was crazy and cool too. There we go. Someone already answered it. I need to keep up with the comments.
Before we get off here, I don't want to hold you all night. Do you have any type of interesting story? So the thing that interested me is the tracking of the birds. That I'm really nerdy about that, and I've read about some of it since you told me all about it when I was down there. Do you have any stories or interesting things that have happened? Or
there's a couple that I probably can't talk about. Some
Sure.
birds that were shot after season and some stories like that. It's pretty interesting to see, particularly with the white fronts. It's interesting to see just how much of a funnel there is in the Mississippi Flyway through our part of Arkansas. And I'll try to post something here in the next few days on Instagram to show that or illustrate that. But when you look at these lines, these birds that move, they'll show up as like a yellow line on a map. So you look at all these birds that have moved, and they come from all across Alaska through central Canada. They come across the plain states, and then they get to Arkansas, and it narrows down to a very small window right where our farm is. And I think that's really interesting. We knew that. We thought we knew that pretty well just from people observing birds on the ground. But when you really put that in those trackers, that becomes pretty neat.
And that's not all by chance. I know just simply from following you guys put a lot of work into your property.
Yeah, we do. And that's with the white fronts in particular, they're very loyal to early dependable habitat, which is water. So if you've got water on your landscape early in the year, October, November, they're going to start using it. They're going to show up like clockwork. And that's something that we've done for the last 30 plus years. And it's really evolved a lot. In the early 90s, we would hold maybe 10,000 white fronts in October towards the end of the month. And now we'll eclipse 100,000 in the same time frame. So it's changed a bunch, but it's been really neat to watch that grow and watch that change. And, back then when we go to hunt specklebellies, hardly anybody even made calls for them, let alone really decoys. And now the call market and decoy market around white fronts is huge, and it's grown. The hunters that go out there and target them specifically has grown too. There's a lot of outfits around us that don't do anything but hunt specklebellies. So it's been neat to see Arkansas kind of evolve into that. But you're seeing other places too. West Tennessee's killing white fronts now, Missouri, some parts of Kentucky, even into Indiana, Illinois, you're getting some birds that are getting killed. They're wintering more birds up there. So I think in looking at them and mallards, I would say that the white fronts adapt more quickly than anything else. Whatever environmental impact or environmental issue is impacting them, they react the quickest to it, which is pretty neat to see.
I had never seen one of the speckled bellies until I was down there with you guys. I don't know if we have them in Tennessee or not, but I had never seen one in my life.
You're definitely getting some in West Tennessee. Not a ton, but they're happening. In fact, I mean, I see them in the air over Memphis from time to time, which 10, 15 years ago would have been unheard of, and now it's relatively normal. I'm trying to catch up, trying to read some of these comments, make sure I'm not missing anything I need to be answering.
PG, this is an interesting one before we jump off that I'm sure you'll have a good answer to. Are the waterfowl populations on the decline?
So, holistically, I would say no, because we are still experiencing very liberal seasons, as in 6 duck, 60-day seasons, right? I think we are seeing it in the field, a downturn in the last few years, particularly with reproduction. We had some dry years, the last couple of years. So you're seeing a little bit older age class. You're not seeing as many year of young. I think you're seeing some of that now because of COVID. We didn't fly a Maypond count or a BPOP, a breeding population survey. So we've gone a couple of years without data. We were able to do that this year. When I say we, I don't mean me personally. Canadian Wildlife Service does that. So we've got info from this year, and that's great. I kind of think it's on the horizon. I think we're going to see populations kind of start to wane a little bit. I think a lot of people are kind of waiting for the shoe to drop on that. But, man, we've experienced an amazing run of really good numbers. Now, I don't go out every year and say, boy, bird numbers are up this year. There's been some years where I'm like, man, I don't buy this. I'm not seeing it. But there's so many other factors that come into play besides just what I see on the ground in my situation. So to answer your question, I don't think numbers are down, but I don't know how much longer we can really sustain the limits and season dates that we have been on 24 years now, I think 6 and 60. So without getting way off in the weeds on how adaptive harvest management is done, that's AHM is what sets those season dates. And all that is done based on the BPOP and harvest numbers and all that data that we put into it. Now, I've got a really good friend that's a biologist that I work with on some of these studies, and he'll tell you all day long, he's like, look, garbage in, garbage out. So if our data is wrong going in, then the information we're getting out of that formula is bad too. He kind of thinks numbers are bad. So I'm going to say I don't think they are. I've got friends at Delta and DU who can lay down all kinds of information and tell me that things are okay. But I do know there are some days you go out in the field and you think, this isn't what it was 10 or 15 years ago. So I think something's kind of happening. I just don't know that it's really showed its head yet.
Awesome. I appreciate you sharing your knowledge.
Is that too nerdy?
No. I love it. I could talk about animals all day and all night. I could keep you here till midnight talking about this stuff. Anybody else want to fire off in there? I need to let Cason go. He's got a family and everything. He needs to get out of here too. Appreciate everybody who jumped into the chat. If you jumped on here late, don't forget to go follow Cason on his YouTube and his Instagram. You have any questions or want to learn more about anything, I guarantee you he'd be happy to answer your questions or help you out with anything. Shoot him over a message. He's a genuine guy. Super, super knowledgeable. And I don't throw those words out lightly. I could probably count on my hand the people I might say that about. But he really is a great guy. Spent some time hunting with him last year and had an absolute blast. But I'm going to cut it off, Mr. Cason. I appreciate you jumping on.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And if your friends ever want to have me back on, just tell them, let you know. We'll do it again.
Absolutely. I'd love to. I'll tell you what, I'll plan on it. It might be a couple months out, and I'll start putting together some questions.
Yeah.
And we'll hit you with 100 questions in a speed round. and really pick your brain. I'd enjoy that. Maybe especially as we get closer to season here. I think
Yeah, absolutely.
people would love to hear it and love to pick your brain again. I appreciate you
Yeah.
big time.
Thank all you guys for the kind words. That's very nice. I'm reading the comments coming in now. I appreciate it. I'm glad y'all enjoyed it. Sometimes I get a little long-winded. So
I do too.
yeah. That's
But
a great look. That's a great thing about social media, right? Like you produce videos because you enjoy what you do, and when you get together with like-minded people, you start talking about it. I could talk for a long time, so I think that's why we do what we do.
And I learned a whole bunch from you guys in just a couple days hanging out with you guys, and you guys accepted me being a newbie and not having a clue what I was doing, going and buying a bunch of lead shot. So,
Hey, so people ask us, you know, if you duck hunt a lot and you never got it, they're like, man, why do you do that? It just turns into a job. But it's really cool too. So like I've got 4 kids, 3 of them are duck hunters. My little girl, she'll be 2 in September, so she's not hunting yet. But I love taking them, right? Like that is the highlight of my year, is to take my kids duck hunting. What's great about it is I get to watch them enjoy something for the first time. And I get to see that awe and that wonderment that you kind of get numb to when you've done it for a long time, right? But in the same breath, there were several, 2 or 3 of y'all on that hunt? There were 2 that had never duck hunted and 3 that had never hunted in the woods.
so
So
me and myself and Aaron, I think, had never hunted ducks.
right. And then I want to say Chris Ingram with Wildfowl had never hunted in the woods before.
Yeah.
He's writing an article that's going to come out, I think, in October, November about that trip, which will be pretty fun to read. But anyway, so that's kind of what's cool to me, and not to compare you guys to children, but it's awesome to take somebody and introduce them to that experience for the first time, or even if it's their 100th time. When you see someone else enjoy something that you might take for granted, it just kind of reminds you how lucky you are to get to do something like that. So that's why
I,
we enjoy it.
I 100% know exactly what you mean. So
Yeah.
my 6-year-old son, last year, it was my goal for him to get his first whitetail.
Yeah.
He ended up getting 4.
Wow.
2 with the crossbow and 2 with 243. 6 years old.
That's
I only
phenomenal.
got 2 deer. But the only reason that I got those 2 deer is because they didn't want to hunt with me that day. I
Yeah.
just have my kids take them all,
Right.
I absolutely loved it.
Yeah. That's awesome at 6, man. I thought I was doing something. So 2 of my sons killed their first duck at 5, and I thought that was a pretty big achievement. Man, you're just killing deer at 6. That's unbelievable. Good for
And
you.
that's only because that's what the law is in Tennessee.
Oh, really?
You 6 to shoot a deer. Yeah.
What? Okay. Why?
I don't know. He loves it. We'll be out there. We're going to get him 10 this year. I hope so. But we'll see what happens.
Cool. I'll have to follow along on YouTube and keep up with that.
Oh, it'll be on there. I guarantee. But I'm going to cut off the live, guys. Appreciate y'all. I'll see y'all tomorrow night, same time. Appreciate y'all.